All right, so now we're going to be looking at shoulder strength, and particularly external rotation strength and internal rotation strength is very important before you go back to throwing. There are some known risk factors that we're looking for future arm injury, as well as just a good assessment of where is your shoulder strength at, and is your shoulder and arm in general prepared to go back to the stress of throwing. So in the clinic, we use something that's called the dynamometer. In this case, we use something by Kinvent that actually lets us see the results on the screen. So I'm going to show you in this video the external rotation test and then the internal rotation test, and talk about why those are important. So what we're going to do is we're going to get up kind of into a relatively throwing specific position at the 90-90 external rotation. And then from here, we are going to have you try to pull back against the strap as hard as you can. We're going to get a reading of pounds of force in that position. And then we're going to be able to see that and compare that one side to the other as you go, and then also compare it to the internal rotation. All right, so then here we're going to be doing the internal rotation test. So again, we're up kind of in that relatively throwing specific position at 90 degrees of shoulder elevation, 90 degrees of elbow bend. And then from here, we're going to be trying to pull my hand forward in internal rotation as if you're accelerating your arm in the throwing motion. So this is what that's going to look like. And then from here, we're pulling forward as best as we can, trying to just rotate that elbow as we pull forward. All right, so once we do those trials, then what we're able to do is compare your internal rotation strength to your external rotation strength, and then also compare your dominant or your injured involved side to your non-dominant or uninjured side. So what we're looking for with this is we want your external rotators to be at least 2/3 as strong as your internal rotators. So your internal rotators are some of the strongest muscles in your body, of your pecs, your lats. The majority of your upper body helps accelerate your arm coming forward. You primarily just have two external rotator muscles, your rotator cuff, that are fighting against to help decelerate your arm. And so we're never going to expect those to be as strong as those internal rotators, but if you're not at least at 66%, through the literature we know that you're at an increased risk of arm injury. So that's one goal. The second thing that we want to see is how strong is your involved side from your non-surgical side or uninvolved side. And again, we might not be at 100%, but we really want to see you at least at 90% before we get you back on the throwing program. If you're not quite there, we want to see you build up some more shoulder strength before you start throwing. And what we can see with this is our system is able to look at kind of how much strength, how much do you have one side versus the other, and also looking at somewhat of your rate of force development and how fast you're able to do it. So that gives us a really good gauge of where is your shoulder relative to the other side, how much more do we have to go through that rehab process. Again, we can keep working on this during your throwing program, but if we're not at least at that 90% of that other side, we're just probably not quite ready. So this is not something that you can probably do on your own. There's not a great way to test this without the technology, but it is something that's very important, and we really encourage you to find a physical therapist that works with baseball players that has access to perform this testing for you to give you a good objective idea of where you are in your rehab progression.